I didn't say anything when she did it. Not a word. I just picked up my jacket, nodded to the waiter, and walked straight out of the restaurant, leaving my untouched plate of grilled salmon, 3 of her smirking friends, and a half-melted birthday cake with my name on it. No scene. No yelling. No begging her to stop. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't echo in the room. It echoes in people's memories. It was supposed to be a small dinner. That's what she told me. Just a few of my friends. Nothing fancy, she said. I didn't even want to celebrate my birthday this year. I was exhausted from work. But she insisted. Said I needed joy in my bones. Turns out the only thing in my bones that night was shame. You see, the roast didn't come from the kitchen. It came from her mouth. She stood up with a glass of red wine, tapped her spoon, and said, "Everyone raise a glass for Micah, my husband, the most patient, most careful man I know. So careful, in fact, that he once returned a watermelon because it looked too aggressive." Laughter. It didn't stop there. She went on about how I take my coffee with more sugar than a toddler's birthday party, how I triple-check locked doors like I'm guarding a vault, and, this was the worst, how I still read manuals before plugging anything in. I swear, he read the blender manual like it was War and Peace, she added. The table lost it. Glasses clinking. Her friend Arlie nearly choked on her cocktail. I laughed, at first, but then she turned to me and said, "Tell them about the time you cried because the toaster made sparks." No? Should I? Silence. Awkward chuckles. Even her friend Corbin muttered, "Dang, girl." I stared at her. She didn't blink. Just sipped her wine. That's when I stood up and left. Just like that. No one followed. Not even her. That was 10 days ago. Since then, she's texted me 38 times. Left 6 handwritten letters on the kitchen counter. Called my mom, my brother, even my barber. She keeps saying it was a joke. That I misunderstood the tone. Tone? How about the tone of betrayal? The pitch of a husband being laughed at like a walking punchline? I haven't said a single word to her since. And now she's unraveling. This morning, I found her sitting on the floor by the front door, crying, begging me to just talk. But I won't. Not yet. Because I've been silent before. When she dismissed my feelings. When she rolled her eyes every time I said I felt overlooked. When I heard Nolan's name a few too many times in a few too many late-night conversations. This time, my silence is the loudest I've ever spoken. And she's finally listening. But it's too late. Because last night, I found something in her phone. Something that made the birthday humiliation feel like a warm-up. I didn't go through her phone. I want to make that clear. It wasn't snooping. It wasn't a betrayal of trust. The phone was there, buzzing nonstop at 3:14 a.m. while she slept in the guest bedroom, still refusing to sleep in our room, maybe out of guilt, maybe because I locked the door the night after the dinner. She'd fallen asleep on the couch in her bathrobe, clutching a pillow like it owed her comfort. Her phone was face down, screen lighting up every few seconds. I was in the kitchen, reheating leftover pasta I never ate, when I finally got annoyed enough to flip it over. I wasn't expecting what I saw. No notifications from family. None from work. Just repeated messages from a contact saved under a single letter. J. That alone wouldn't have made me pause. But the messages were previewed. "You're not even trying to fix this. He doesn't see what we are. We should have left the clown show years ago." Clown show? Clown show. Was that me? I tapped the screen. Not even locked. Maybe she thought I'd never touch it. Maybe she assumed I didn't have the nerve. Maybe she underestimated what quiet people are capable of when silence turns heavy. I opened the full thread. It wasn't just recent. It went back months. Pictures. Late-night selfies from her office. Inside jokes. Memes that only make sense when two people talk constantly. Things I hadn't even noticed were missing from our marriage because I'd become too numb to expect warmth. Then a message from 3 days before the dinner. "So are you going to say it tonight? Or keep pretending?" "Nah. Tonight I'm going to test him. Let's see how much he can take." I blinked. Read it again. Then again. It was intentional. Planned. That dinner wasn't just an accident. It wasn't wine-fueled teasing or a poorly timed joke. It was a test. Of my limits. Of how much public shame I could swallow before snapping. I passed, apparently. With flying colors. I stayed silent. I gave them exactly what they wanted, an obedient, red-faced husband too embarrassed to fight back. I stared at the screen like it was burning through my fingers. I looked over at her, still asleep, lips parted slightly, unaware that her entire performance had collapsed. I didn't wake her. I didn't shout. Instead, I set her phone on the table, made myself a cup of tea, and started writing a checklist. Yes, a checklist. Because I realized something right then and there. Silence is not weakness. Silence is planning. And I was done being the joke. I was going to walk away in a way no one would expect. Not screaming, not begging, but with precision, with control, and with a story that would make her regret every second she spent rehearsing her little act for Jay. By the time she woke up, I had already spoken to a lawyer. And her birthday? It was only 5 days away. I had a plan. Corinne's birthday fell on a Thursday, but I took the entire week off from work without telling her. Not because I needed a break, because I needed time. I didn't storm out. I didn't vanish. I was right there the whole time, making coffee, sitting at the kitchen table, asking the usual, "How did you sleep?" while I quietly rewrote the foundation of our life. She didn't notice at first. That's how detached she'd become. She was too busy worrying why I wouldn't engage in another conversation about her birthday plans. Too distracted to see I was clearing digital breadcrumbs behind her. First thing I did was visit a storage unit 2 towns over. I signed a lease in my brother's name, paid 6 months up front in cash. I needed a place to move my essentials without her noticing. Old journals, documents, hard drives, family heirlooms. I even boxed up my grandfather's watch, the one she once called cheap and outdated. Funny how she never wore her engagement ring, but always had something to say about the things that mattered to me. Second thing, I got a new phone. Same model, same case, but with a different number and SIM. I only gave the number to 3 people: my brother, my lawyer, and the company that runs the property management for the apartment building. You'll see why that matters soon. Now, the clue. On the morning of her birthday, I placed an envelope in her purse. Not a letter, not a threat, just a photo. One of the screenshots from her messages with Jay. The one where she said she was going to test me. No caption, no warning. Just that single screenshot printed on glossy paper, folded once, with a paperclip. I left for a walk before she woke up. When I came back an hour later, I found her pacing the living room barefoot, phone in one hand, that photo in the other. She looked pale. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her, opened the fridge, and poured orange juice like nothing had happened. "Elijah," she whispered, almost scared. "Where did you find this?" I shrugged. "Found it." She didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't shout, but her hand trembled so much that the paperclip fell to the floor. For the next 2 days, she was overly kind. Brought me coffee in bed, left sticky notes on the mirror that said, "You matter," asked if I wanted to go out for dinner, just the 2 of us, no friends, no distractions. But it was all performative. Her guilt wasn't about hurting me. It was about being caught. She didn't know what I'd seen, how much I'd read, whether I knew who Jay was, whether I had more. So I kept her guessing. Each time she reached out to hug me, I stepped slightly to the side. Each time she asked, "Do you still love me?" I'd look at her like she was a stranger asking too personal a question. Then, on Saturday night, she broke. I came home to find her crying at the bottom of the stairs, holding a folder. Inside, printouts of every message she ever sent to Jay. Hundreds of them. She said she wanted to be transparent, that it was just words, and she was trying to feel something. But there was no apology in her voice. Just desperation. Panic. The kind that doesn't come from hurting someone, but from losing control over them. "Elijah, please," she begged, "talk to me. I can't fix this if you won't talk to me." I looked at her and said the only thing I'd said to her all day. "Why'd you laugh so loud?" She blinked. "What?" "At dinner," I said softly. "Why'd you laugh so loud?" She had no answer. Just silence. The same silence I gave her. But what she still didn't know was that her little inside joke with Jay wasn't so inside anymore. Because while she was printing out her texts, someone else was printing something for me too. And when I opened that package the next day, the name Jay finally had a face. And a job title. It arrived in a plain manila envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in blocky, all caps letters, Elijah W. Inside was a background check. The kind I used to order for contractors back when I managed infrastructure projects. It wasn't cheap, but the kind of truth I needed rarely is. The file was 5 pages thick, and the first line of page 2 nearly made me drop it. Jason Holloway, VP, Corporate Development. Direct superior to Corinne Wallace. Her boss. Her actual boss. That's who Jay was. It explained everything. The sudden invitations to after-hours strategy dinners. The way she started wearing perfume to work again. The late nights, the tight dresses, the tension she blamed on stress but never explained. I had convinced myself for so long that I was being paranoid, that trusting your partner means not keeping score. But here it was, in my hands. She was having an emotional affair, at the very least, with her boss. And worse, they thought I was so spineless, so passive, that I wouldn't even catch it if they mocked me to my face. Now I was done being quiet. That night, I didn't wait for her to fall asleep. I sat across from her at the dinner table and pushed the file across the surface like a contract. She didn't reach for it. She just stared at the label on the cover. Jason Holloway, 8-month timeline. Her face crumbled. Not in guilt, in fear. Elijah, she started, but I raised one hand. Don't explain. Just confirm. It's him, right? She didn't speak. That was my answer. I nodded, stood up, and walked away. I could hear her following me down the hallway, panicked, whispering my name like it was some kind of shield that could protect her from consequences. I never slept with him, she cried out. It wasn't like that. It was just emotional. I was confused. You weren't confused when you laughed at me in front of him, I said, without turning around. That shut her up. She didn't sleep in the house that night. I think she went to her sister's place, though I didn't ask. I turned off my phone, powered on the backup one I'd prepared weeks ago, and slept soundly for the first time in months. The next morning, I sent an anonymous package to her company's HR department. Nothing vindictive, just the messages. Printed, time-stamped, and labeled clearly with both her name and Jason Holloway's. Let the corporate policies do the rest. Corinne came back the next evening, her hair messy, her eyes hollow. I got a call, she said, closing the front door behind her like it weighed 100 pounds. They're launching an internal investigation. I didn't answer. I just kept slicing vegetables at the counter. She walked into the kitchen, stood behind me for several seconds, then whispered, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said without emotion. "Hating you would require caring. I'm past that." She started to cry again. I didn't turn around. I wasn't trying to hurt her. That was the difference between us. Her laughter had been meant to humiliate me, to draw blood in public. My silence. It wasn't revenge. It was reality. And the reality was, I no longer saw her as my wife. I saw her as someone who once loved being close to me, until someone with more power and fewer scruples gave her a mirror to admire herself in. She had stared at her reflection too long, and now the mirror was cracking. Later that night, she handed me her phone, voluntarily, with all her passwords. She said she wanted to show me everything. I didn't even look at it. "Why?" she asked, confused, voice trembling. "Because your words mean nothing now," I said. "Only your silence might start to." She looked at me like I was a stranger. But I wasn't. I was the same man she laughed at in front of a room full of people. The only difference now? Everyone would soon know what that laughter had cost her. Because HR didn't keep things quiet for long. And Jason? He had far more to lose than she ever did. It began with a memo. Just 2 days after I dropped the anonymous package to her company's HR office, Corinne received an email marked confidential, mandatory internal interview. She didn't know I had seen it, but she left her laptop open while she took a shower, and the subject line glared at me like a silent witness. I didn't read the full message. I didn't need to. I already knew what it meant. Jason Holloway was being investigated, and now so was she. When she walked into the living room wrapped in a towel, trying to act normal, I was already sipping tea on the couch, my expression blank. She paused, glanced at the laptop, then at me. Our eyes didn't meet. "I have a weird work meeting later," she said casually. I nodded. "Hope it goes well." But it didn't. She returned home that evening looking like she'd aged 10 years in a day. No lipstick, no earrings, no fake smile. She didn't even kick off her heels like usual. Just stood by the door, clutching her purse like it was all she had left. "They suspended him," she said finally. "Jason, pending investigation." I looked up. "And you?" "I'm under review," she whispered. I gave a small nod. "Makes sense." Silence stretched between us, long and ugly. It wasn't the kind of silence that asks for forgiveness. It was the kind that announces the funeral of a marriage. She collapsed into the armchair across from me, hands shaking. "I never thought it would get this far," she muttered. "He said they wouldn't care, that no one would find out." I didn't answer. She kept digging. It was just emotional. I swear, Elijah. There were no hotel rooms, no physical stuff. Just messages. Comfort. I was lonely, and you were always so careful. I offered flatly. She flinched. Don't do that, she said, her voice cracking. Don't twist everything into a weapon. No need, I replied. You already used me as a prop at your comedy hour. Remember? She looked away. That night, she cried in the kitchen, not sobbing, just silent tears running down her cheeks as she made dinner she knew I wouldn't eat. She'd stopped trying to serve me, just left a plate on the table, untouched. The next morning, the rumors began. I didn't start them, but I also didn't stop them. Apparently, word had gotten out that Jason and Corinne were more than close, and that it was an ethics thing. Someone leaked pieces of the messages. Corinne swore she hadn't told a soul, and I believed her. But offices have thin walls. People talk. And once the whispers start, they don't stop. She was iced out. Meetings were rescheduled without her. Projects reassigned. Her Slack notifications slowed to a crawl. Her team lead forgot to include her on 2 key client calls. Even her work best friend stopped tagging her in memes. She came home that Friday after a half day and didn't even make it up the stairs. Just sat on the floor by the laundry basket and stared at nothing. Her phone kept buzzing. She ignored it. Elijah, she finally whispered, how do I fix this? I didn't answer right away. I just sat on the bottom step, watching her. Why'd you choose to break the one thing I never questioned? I asked softly. I gave you space, trust, a home, and you broke me like a vase you wanted to see shatter. She covered her face with her hands. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. No, I replied. You know exactly what's wrong. You thought I'd never leave. You thought I'd always come back. You thought humiliating me was just entertainment. She shook her head, crying harder now. But I wasn't finished. You made me feel like less than nothing. And now you're shocked the world's returning the favor. I stood and walked away. That weekend, she didn't go out. Didn't text anyone. Didn't call her sister. She sat on the couch, replaying her own destruction in silence. Every once in a while, she'd whisper my name like it was a lifeline I had already let go of. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. The sad part? She hadn't even reached rock bottom yet. Because the next week, someone else reached out to me. Someone I hadn't heard from in over 2 years. And what he told me, it changed everything again. The message came in the form of an email. No subject line. Just a sender I hadn't seen in over 2 years, Theo Murray. At first, I thought it was spam. A phishing attempt maybe. But then I read the first line. I know what you did. I saw it happening before you did. I tried to warn you once, remember? I froze. Theo wasn't just anyone. He was my old business partner. Back when I thought I was destined to run my own construction consultancy. We started a firm together fresh out of grad school. We were both good. I handled the structure, the numbers, the deals. He was the people person, the networking guy, the one who charmed clients. It worked for a while, until it didn't. Corinne never liked Theo. She said he was too slick, too flirty, and she warned me, repeatedly, that trusting him would be a mistake. After a contract dispute, Theo walked away from the business. We haven't spoken since. But now here he was, back, reaching out with a quiet kind of urgency. His message continued. I saw her at a bar. With Holloway. This was months ago. I didn't know who the guy was at the time, but the body language was clear. She wasn't hiding anything. She was showing off. I knew something was wrong when she looked over and winked at me, like she knew I wouldn't do anything about it. I stared at the screen, mouth dry. She saw Theo, months ago, and said nothing. She winked. Why? I replied with one sentence. Call me. He called within 5 minutes. I stepped outside to take it, standing in the cold, barefoot on the back porch while the wind cut through my t-shirt like knives. Theo's voice hadn't changed, confident, a little smug, but this time laced with something else. Regret. I didn't tell you then because I didn't think you'd believe me, he admitted. But I watched her lean in close to that guy, touch his chest, whisper something while laughing. It wasn't just workplace flirtation. It was deliberate. And it wasn't the first time I'd seen that pattern with her. I frowned. What do you mean? There was a long pause on the line. Elijah, he said quietly. You remember Olivia? I nodded. Olivia had been Theo's ex, a graphic designer, sweet, funny, always kind to me. She used to hang out with Corinne sometimes. but their friendship faded after the split. At least, that's what I thought. She told me, years later, that Corinne made a pass at me at your New Year's party, he said. Back in 2018. I didn't think she was serious. I laughed it off. Olivia didn't. My breath caught in my throat. She tried to kiss you? I asked. She almost did. I dodged it. I didn't want to destroy our friendship. But I never told you because I didn't want it to be messy. Now, I'm telling you everything. I think you deserve to know the kind of storm you've been standing in. I felt sick. It wasn't just Jason. It wasn't just a moment of emotional confusion. This was a pattern. Corinne had always wanted to see how far she could push boundaries before they collapsed under her heels. And the worst part? I was the safe one. The fallback. The one she knew would never leave no matter what she did. Until now. I thanked Theo for his honesty. He apologized for not saying anything sooner. He asked me if I was okay. I told him the truth. No. But I will be. That night, I didn't mention the call to Corinne. Instead, I sat across from her at the table while she picked at her dinner and asked one simple question. Have you ever told me the whole truth about anything? She looked up, startled. What are you talking about? I smiled just barely. That's what I thought. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. I cleared my plate, walked upstairs, and finally unlocked the guest room door. Not for her to enter, but for me to sleep in. The next morning, I started listing the house. She still doesn't know, but she'll find out soon enough. Because this time, she won't hear my plans. She'll just watch them play out, brick by brick, like a structure she once called home, crumbling silently around her. I didn't tell her I was going to the bank. I didn't need to. By the time she rolled over in bed that morning, still trying to fake sleep, like that would delay reality, I had already withdrawn my share of the joint savings account and moved it to an account with only my name on it. I wasn't being cruel. I left her more than enough. But I took what was mine, what I'd earned, what she hadn't touched, even while touching everything else. Corinne didn't notice at first, but banks send alerts. And within 2 hours, I heard her voice echo down the hall. Elijah, what did you do? I was sitting on the back porch, drinking coffee like it was any other Tuesday. I didn't respond right away. I waited. I let her storm out, barefoot, holding her phone like it was a murder weapon, already trembling from the realization that I wasn't bluffing anymore. You drained the account, she shouted. No, I said calmly. I took my half. You still have yours. Or what's left of it. Her mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find words fast enough to stop me. For once, she wasn't performing. She wasn't twisting anything into a joke. She was panicking. Are you leaving me? She finally asked. I already left you, I replied. You just didn't notice. She sat down hard on the patio chair across from me. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. The birds chirped, the neighbor's dog barked, a delivery truck rumbled down the street like it was just another quiet morning. Then she asked something that surprised me. Do your parents know? I turned my head slowly. Not yet. Please don't tell them, she whispered. Not like this. That hit me. Not because I owed her softness, but because she still didn't understand. This wasn't about embarrassment anymore. This wasn't about private shame or dirty laundry. This was about something far colder. Boundaries. She never expected me to draw any. For years, she treated my discomfort like a punchline, my patience like weakness, and my loyalty like a leash she could tug at when it suited her. And now that the leash was off, she was terrified, not of losing me, but of the image it would ruin. Later that day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I changed my relationship status on social media. From married to it's complicated. No dramatic post. No cryptic quote. Just a single change. Within an hour, I had 3 texts from friends I hadn't heard from in months. A college buddy messaged, Yo, everything okay? That was unexpected. Her cousin messaged, She told me you guys were fine. Guess not. Even her old coworker, the only one who ever quietly told me I deserved better, replied, If you need anything, I've got a spare room. Word spread. Fast. Corinne saw it too. I know she did, because I heard her pacing in the upstairs hallway for over an hour, phone in hand, probably crafting some neutral explanation before anyone dared to ask. She came downstairs eventually, still trying to look composed, still clinging to control. I think we should talk, she said, like it hadn't been months since I begged her to do just that. I stood by the dining room window, arms crossed. Talk about what? I asked. About us. About fixing this. No, I said simply. I'm not interested in fixing something that was broken on purpose. She blinked. So what? You're just going to let everyone think I was cheating. You were, I said flatly. She froze. No hotel room needed. You crossed the line long before that. And you knew it. She sat down on the edge of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. For the first time, I saw it in her face. Not fear, not guilt, but the realization that I had stopped being afraid of losing her. She looked up at me, voice barely above a whisper. What happens next? I didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, I walked into the home office, pulled out the document I'd been working on for weeks, and dropped it on the table in front of her. It was a separation agreement. Clean. Professional. Drafted by my lawyer. She didn't even touch it. She just stared. But I wasn't done. Because as she sat there in stunned silence, the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. It was her boss's wife. And she wasn't here to talk to Corinne. She was here for me. When I opened the door and saw her standing there, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. Her name was Elise Holloway, Jason's wife. Or soon-to-be ex-wife, judging by the stack of documents in her hands and the cool fury in her eyes. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. We stood there for a few seconds, two strangers stitched together by betrayal, both staring at a door we never thought we'd walk through. Can we talk? She asked softly. I nodded and stepped aside. Corinne stayed frozen on the couch. She recognized Elise instantly. Her body went rigid like she'd been caught stealing, which, in a way, she had. But Elise didn't even glance at her. She came into the dining room, placed the envelope on the table, and looked at me. I thought you should know, she began. He's denying everything. Says it was all in her head. HR suspended him indefinitely. We're done. I just wanted to tell you in person because you deserve more than silence. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. There was a quiet, mutual understanding between us. That strange peace that comes from realizing the worst has already happened, and now all that's left is choosing how to rebuild. Corinne opened her mouth to say something, but Elise held up a hand. Don't, she said coldly. You made a fool of him. He stayed silent. I won't. Then she turned back to me. I hope you choose peace, she said. Some people don't deserve explanations. Just distance. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in months, the house felt still. Not cold, not hostile, just still. Corinne stood up slowly, lips trembling, voice cracked. She's wrong, she whispered. I do owe you an explanation. I shook my head. No, Corinne. You owe me nothing now. It's not about closure. It's about respect. And yours ran out the moment you laughed at me like I was less than you. Tears started falling. She tried to hold them back, but they came in waves. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said. I thought you'd always stay. I did too, I replied. Until I realized staying was killing who I used to be. That was the final conversation we ever had inside that house. A week later, I moved into a small apartment in a quieter part of town. Nothing fancy, but it had sunlight, a quiet balcony, and a neighbor who greeted me by name. I sold my half of the house within a month. She stayed behind. Alone. Jason lost his job. Elise filed. Corinne took a leave of absence and started telling mutual friends we were going through a spiritual transition. I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. The people who mattered saw what really happened. And me? I got better. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Took weekend hikes. Built a new routine with no one interrupting it, mocking it, or trying to rewrite it into a joke. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was being measured. I just existed. And that was enough. One morning, months later, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Corinne. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because healing doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes, it comes from finally walking away, without the need to look back. And the thing she'll never understand? It wasn't my silence that ruined her. It was hers. The day she laughed, and didn't notice I stopped listening.